Hey there, everybody. Welcome into Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan beat writer for The Free, joined by Reiner Sabin, our Big Ten insider. Busy week coming up, Reiner, and we've been saying that a lot, but it's that time of year. It's November, 2 games left, but before another game, the next time I will see you, I believe, will be in court. Fortunately, not for either of us. But before we talk about that, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it should be an interesting week. Jim Harbaugh versus the Big Ten is arguably more compelling, interesting theater than Michigan versus Maryland. But there is still a game to be played, and football is why we're here.
And we will discuss both. That is also why we're here. And this Michigan is saying this is not a trap game, right? That is one of the 3 things that we'll be talking off the start about. This is not a trap game. And if Michigan wins, this will be the 1,000th victory. So 2 notable thoughts there. But as we said, everything starts with Jim Harbaugh, as it often does. And also that is literally first because it's on Friday morning, 9 a.m. Jim Harbaugh and the University of Michigan versus Big Ten. As you said, the Big Ten suspended him just about 24 hours before Michigan was set to play Penn State last week for a violation of the Big Ten sportsmanship policy. He was not granted a temporary restraining order. Instead, it was pushed back. That hearing is this Friday. And Reiner, you will be there. I do plan on coming as well in the morning. I have a flight later to Maryland, but as long as it's not too long, I will be there as well. Does it matter what happens? Or it's not, does it matter, right? But like, in what ways does the Harbaugh outcome matter?
I mean, I think it would appease, obviously, Michigan folks and give them a sense of retribution in some ways that they are able to get this restraining order if it does indeed get handed down to them. I think, for them, having Harbaugh out there is kind of, is a show of defiance, I guess, against the Big Ten, and gives them some some semblance of victory in that sense over the conference. But from an optic standpoint, I think it would help maybe present their case a little bit better. I guess that somebody from the bench, a judge, sided with them in this capacity. But at the same token, I don't know if it really has any much tangible effect on how the team will play or perform on Saturday.
I guess that was more what I meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in the quarter, it matters in terms of optics and everything. But with the game plan Sharon Moore just put together, with the fact Jim Harbaugh is on hand all week long, with what the players are saying. I mean, we were asking him Tuesday night, how much are you paying attention to it? And they've all pretty unanimously said they are not paying attention to what happened. And I guess as far as fans or outsiders are concerned in the way it's perceived with what a court win would mean. I'm not making any referendum on Judge Tim Connors, but he is a Michigan law lecturer, right? And has been for a decade or so. I think he actually played, according to his file, he played football at Michigan in 1972. So as there will always be naysayers, people, even if he does side with Michigan, will quickly point to that.
Yeah, I think that point is valid, and certainly the perception of how the ruling is handed down and who's presiding over this matter in case is definitely going to be part of the discussion going forward. It's a strange situation. Jim Harbaugh talked Monday about wanting due process, and he referenced experience I guess he had in a civics class where he said his big takeaway was that you're innocent until proven guilty. I mean, I feel like he was trying to appeal to his base. I don't think, some people are necessarily as receptive on the outside of the Michigan, sphere, I guess, to, what he's arguing and such. And it'll be interesting to see if he actually speaks or whether it's just going to be handled by his lawyers.
Well, and I wonder if that's part of what he meant about also on Monday, Jim Harbaugh was saying that he thinks this is America's team now, right? And he says America loves an underdog. I mean, I don't think Michigan has yet to be an underdog. I know they've yet to be their favored by 3+ touchdowns every game. But I guess what he means is when someone feels like the man, whoever the man is out to get them, or Big Brother, right? And you need to bond together and pull yourself up from your bootstraps or what have you. But I thought it was a great question that you asked Sharon Moore today, because at one time, Jim Harbaugh is saying that this is America's team and everybody is united in one front, and this should be the team that represents America. But at the same time, Sharon Moore showed up to today, Wednesday's press conference, wearing a shirt that said Michigan versus everybody. Right. So is everybody against you, or are you sort of what represents everybody, I guess, was your question.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, again, the mixed messaging that's coming out of the program. I mean, only a couple of weeks before, Blake Corum and Colson Loveland were basically saying, like, we like to be the bullies. Now they're like, again, leaning into the whole victim situation too. And so you have the Michigan versus everybody, and then you have America's team. So which is it? I mean, and this is why I think, the public perception of Michigan, at least outside, is, not favorable. And I think people are, questioning why Michigan has reacted this way and kind of played itself as the victim, when arguably, as the Big Ten letter laid out, this ongoing advanced scouting scheme, which is designed to, according to the Big Ten, gain an unfair advantage through sign stealing. And I think anybody would come to the same conclusion. It was going on many years, and arguably you can say that a lot of these other programs that were potentially affected by this, they're the ones that are the victims. So, I think some people are a little bit outraged that Michigan has taken the same, or tried to put forth this idea that they've been somewhat persecuted in this whole matter. And I think that's why the reaction after Sharon Moore's post-game interview was so strong. And some people are questioning why, he presented again, that it seemed like Harbaugh was, gone. I mean, he's not even suspended during the week. I mean, he's missing a game, and they've shown they're undefeated 4-0 right now in games that he hasn't coached.
True. Good point. But however it is presenting to the public, what matters is what's actually happening. And
Sure.
This is bringing the team closer together, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, certainly there will be a day and a time when it matters who's right, who's wrong, what happened. But as far as how it is affecting the team internally, situations like this either will create a rift and will fracture things or bring them together. And Sharon Moore said as much today. He said, he said they knew this was a tighter, like a senior led group, right? I mean, how many people came back who could have, easily half a dozen more guys could have gone on. I'm not saying good first round NFL draft picks, but Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinter, Chris Jenkins, Blake Corum, right? I mean, just to name a few, all could have gone on. But they came back. And so since that time, they were saying these things. And if you're Michigan, you have no other line of thinking or line. There's nothing else to do. Other than say, yes, we're guilty, punish us, than to say, look, what Sharon Moore said. Hey, when you're at the top, everyone's going to come for you, right? And if you are Michigan, it does seem as if the NCAA has had an affinity for attacking your program or making sure that they enforce even what appear to be some ticky-tack things or not so ticky-tack things, depending on who you are. Who you're asking, and then now the Big Ten, right? And that's why Michigan is saying, and then the Big Ten did themselves no favors, and Tony Petitti did himself absolutely no favors with the timing of the suspension. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it creates the optics that they waited for it. I tend to think they kind of did, and whether Michigan deserved that or not, Michigan can use it to say, see, like look at this, and so.
Well, if you, as the letter, I guess, kind of alluded to, that Michigan asked for an extension, so that led to the Wednesday deadline, and Big Ten had to, process and look at the filing that Michigan presented to them, and so that's what led to the maybe delayed enforcement of the Big Ten sportsmanship policy and the letter that was sent at that time. So I don't know if it's so much the Big Ten's fault as it is maybe it was Michigan's fault.
Yeah, maybe Michigan should have gotten it in on Tuesday. I've heard. And I think that's a fair argument.
I mean, it's like
I just find it hard to believe that the Big Ten, like, I don't know if the Big Ten, I mean, they're not obligated to act with the same sense of urgency Michigan has in this matter, right? Like, and so if that's when they got back to, I mean, I'm not saying they were going out to lunch before they're going through these briefs, but it did not. A lot of this is optics. A lot of things are just because we're not even us, right? Who cover the report, who cover the team, talk to some of the movers and shakers. We're still not in the room, right? So a lot of it is how it looks.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I just think, again, it's hard for Michigan to sell the idea that, on one hand, they're America's team, and then on the other one, they're like the Expendables. I mean, they're like, exiled from society, and they're fighting against, everybody. So which is it? I mean, and that's the question that they have to answer themselves. And I don't think they, I don't think they could sell both ideas. I mean, you either lean into one or the other. I think the team, like you have alluded to, is probably leaned into the Michigan versus everybody, which is probably the most useful. Trying to present yourself as America's team is not the most useful. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl since 1995, so it hasn't worked for them very much. So maybe Michigan should take the Michigan versus everybody way of doing things.
Right. And the team that Jim Harbaugh mentioned by name this week was not the Dallas Cowboys. It was actually, in fact, the Green Bay Packers, when he was talking about what Michigan could do this weekend when Michigan goes for its 1,000th win, right? He mentioned how the Green Bay Packers, the winningest NFL team in history, Valdosta, Georgia, they had like 794 wins. Valdosta, Georgia in high school, 951 wins. And then he said the Michigan Wolverines, NCAA football, 999, going for win 1,000. And so that is another layer of this weekend, right? So maybe Michigan does not need Jim Harbaugh on the sideline to beat Maryland. But Mike Elston, defensive line coach we talked to today, said it would be a shame in his mind if Jim Harbaugh was not there for this week. Sharon Moore said he's like, hey, as far as I'm concerned, it's Jim Harbaugh's win anyway. I'm just the guy holding it down. But that would be a little, because Jim's been talking about this for a little while, right? And he always loves to be like, right? He loves to call on Jack Harbaugh and Mr. Michigan history buff. I mean, I think that would really sting for Jim if he wasn't there on Saturday.
I would think so too. I mean, just judging by his affinity, for the program, and his knowledge of the history, and having grown up in Ann Arbor, and his dad being the assistant coach there and being a ball boy, and all the way till now. I mean, playing as a quarterback for Bo Schembechler, who is the most iconic coach at Michigan, and then going forward to being the head coach. Starting in 2015 to now, and then, getting the program to this point where, they've had a lot of success in the last few years. Although then that success is being called into question, obviously, related to the, Connor Stallions matter. And it's just a peculiar time to be going for your 1,000th win, because again, there is so much scrutiny on the program for all this other bad stuff that it kind of blots out, the significance of this moment and this milestone achievement, because people are questioning whether even if this win will stand, because, or not this win, but the previous wins that led up to it will stand, especially if they're, if the NCAA ultimately vacates them, although I don't know what that will really do other than affect the record books, whatsoever. But that's another layer to this whole thing. What could possibly be taken away down the line.
Right. And could Michigan have another chance for its 1,000th win? Sort of thing. Right. But I guess those questions are going to get answered. But in the here and now, I mean, Jim Harbaugh said at the beginning of the season, he said, in our wildest dreams, we were hoping on the 11th game to be going for a chance to be 11-0 and a chance at that win. He said, if not, maybe in that last game against Ohio State would have been the next best thing, right? So I mean, when he was asked about this so there's like A in history, right? There's AD, there's BC, right? We need like a between suspensions, right? Like suspension 1, this is suspension 2, like in between suspension when we had Cool Jim, right? When he said he was going to be, when we had Cool Jim for 4 weeks. He was talking about all the different things that he wanted to do in the program to do for the 1,000th
Right.
win. So, so it does matter. But we might be getting ahead of ourselves if we just write this up as the 1,000th win. Excuse me, easy enough for me to say, because Quentin Johnson, defensive back, said that they were all in a meeting. Michigan was in a meeting earlier this week, and some of the players said this might be. They called it the best 6-4 team in America. Now, what that says, I'm not sure, but Michigan is not taking Maryland lightly. And Maryland does have something that Michigan has not seen this year, and that's a good passing attack.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, last year they were able to move the ball quite well against them, Maryland, and that was with a different OC, Dan Enos. Now they have Josh Gaddis, the former Michigan OC, but again, it's Loxley's emphasis is on offense. That's his background. Mike Loxley, the head coach, and so they've always shown that they can move the ball pretty effectively since he's been there at Maryland. And so, I think it's going to potentially be their biggest challenge defensively for sure, because, the one thing that Michigan has sometimes struggled with is the mobile quarterbacks. Talia Tagovailoa is a mobile quarterback. And so I think that containing him in the pocket, trying to prevent the fact that, he can extend plays and get guys open, and limiting him is going to be probably the biggest challenge so far this season as far as a defense is concerned.
Yeah, Mike Elston, the defensive line coach, again, helped me understand the Michigan's game plan a little bit better today when we were asking him about that, because he was talking and you could really picture it, right? If you've watched any of Maryland football, there are times he said it's not about scheming up one-on-one matchups. This week is about moving as a unit. And that made a lot of sense to me, right? Because there are times where you can dial up a free edge, like get a linebacker, right? Just with a full head of speed downhill, and Talia, or Little Tua, whatever you want to call him, just hits a little shake. And a free rusher, I mean, he just blows right by him, right? And so Elston said it is about moving as one, collapsing the pocket around Talia. And if he does escape the pocket, it's fine, so long as that escape is backwards or sort of out and funneled back, right? Not stepping up and into the middle. And just taking a look at some of his numbers a little deeper, if Michigan is going to win this game, likely, but certainly if they are able to generate pressure, because Tagovailoa is completing just 38.6% of his passes this year when he's under pressure, 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. When he's not pressured and he has a clean pocket, 73% completions, 18 touchdowns. So, just get it. But also one more number for you, Reiner. It's not just about, like we said, getting pressure with the blitz, because he's actually good against the blitz. He completes 59% of his passes, has 14 touchdowns, and 2 of his picks, right? So it's not like all of his interceptions. He has 8 interceptions. Only a couple are coming against the blitz. And so it's not like, oh, if you need pressure, just send more people and then he's going to mess up. No, it's about the right type of pressure.
You can bet, though, that Josh Gaddis is going to have some stuff schemed up, particularly for this game. They probably saved some stuff, too, because, I mean, he left on some kind of, not so great terms when he departed. And, and so I think, there's probably a little bit of bitterness on his end. So I would assume he's probably got some interesting things planned for Michigan. He's going to pull out all the stops to try to get some kind of personal retribution, I guess, maybe against, even though he left voluntarily to go to Miami, that ended up being a disaster for him, and which led him to Maryland to reunite with Loxley, who was with him and kind of, helped mentor him a little bit when they were both at Alabama. It's interesting also that Michigan is using Alex Orji as the scout team QB. I mean, we heard about Alex Orji perhaps being the greatest kick returner of all time, according to Jim Harbaugh. And, that hasn't quite materialized. So I guess, this is what he's kind of been used at to help give these kind of looks because of his mobility. He's definitely played mostly as quarterback, and you saw him at the end of the Michigan State game, score a touchdown as a runner, at the end of that game. So it is interesting that they're using him as the scout team quarterback just to get that mobile look that Talia Tagovailoa presents. Of course, Tagovailoa can do a lot more in the passing game than say Orji can.
Yeah, he has, and I think that might help Michigan. Michigan's done a great job of 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, being very focused, right? But I think the fact that hey, this is a capable team offensively, right? Yeah. If it was a team with the same sort of recipe, like fake good, like a Nebraska or a Penn State, where they don't have an offense, they have a good defense, sort of, but no offense. I don't think Michigan would then there may actually then Michigan could overlook them, but they're still too talented to actually lose to them, if that makes sense. Maryland is good enough where Michigan doesn't even have the luxury of let's just focus on Ohio State. Maryland, Michigan. Keep in mind last year, Michigan only beat Maryland by a touchdown in Ann Arbor, and they got off to a 7-0 start 15 seconds into the game after Maryland fumbled a kickoff off their face. Right. Mm-hmm. And so Maryland technically received the opening kick and Michigan was up 7-0, 10 seconds in. And so, but after that, it was with Tagovailoa and Hemby, and it was a dogfight last year. And so,
well, Tagovailoa got hurt, dinged up in that game a little bit at one point, and that also affected things. Some of the momentum, I think, from Maryland's standpoint too. My thinking is that Michigan also tried to use its offense to shorten the game and limit their offensive possessions too. So I think Maryland's defense is pretty pliable, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them, just hammer away at them with the running game again a little bit, just to kind of keep the time of possession in their favor and also limit possessions for Maryland.
Yeah, and then here's another thing I think that I could see resulting if that is the case, right? Michigan starts putting up these long drives and Maryland sees the game is shortening and they start pressing. You got to get 7. Each drive becomes more important. That's when the turnovers start, right? So Tagovailoa has thrown at least 1 pick in 4 of his last 5 games, I believe, 8 picks on the year. He is susceptible to the turnover. And so Michigan has won outside of the Bowling Green game. I believe I don't think Michigan has been on the wrong side of the turnover margin in a game this year. And so,
and Maryland's just not a very disciplined team. They're, they never have been under Loxley, and it's just, it's been their kind of Achilles heel in a lot of ways. The turnovers and penalties, they tend to shoot themselves in the foot, which is why they can't win these big games generally.
How many times have we watched this exact same Maryland thing, right? 3-0 in the non-con, right? this year they even more sort of Charlie Browned you with the football. They got to 5-0 because they rattled off a couple Big Ten wins early, and so I can't remember. I think I did put them 24, 25 in my AP poll. They never cracked the rankings. They got up to 26. They never actually were ranked, even when they were 5-0. But I remember Mike Loxley, if you remember when we were in Indianapolis in the summer, he was saying, we're talking about Big Ten championships, right? He's like, you never heard us say that word before this year. But now, we finally think we have systems in place. And that sounded really good 5 weeks ago when they were 5-0 or 6 weeks ago. But they had a 4-game losing streak, and although they do have a little bit of momentum, they just beat Nebraska on the road for what that's worth on a field goal as time expired. But you sort of transitive property this out. Both Michigan and Maryland played Nebraska at Nebraska. Michigan was up 45-0. Maryland needed a kick as time expired. So just for what it's worth.
Yes.
Now's the time for a break. And on the other side, this is the first game that we will predict. We will bring in Andrew Burkle, and we'll take a look at the picks all around college football. Don't go anywhere. This is Hail Yes. All right, as promised, we are back, and now we're better because we have Andrew Burkle. Andrew, week 12 of the college football slate. Do you have how do you feel when you look at the slate? Do you feel you have learned about these teams? Do you have a better feel, or are you kind of like me, where it's like, yeah, I'm still kind of coin flipping a lot of these games?
Well, the first thought I had when I looked at this schedule was that's pretty poopy, poopy slate here. God, the games this week are not great. I mean, we have Michigan, Maryland. There's obviously a lot surrounding the Wolverines and the lead up to the Ohio State game. Got Washington, Oregon State is a pretty good game, and we'll get to those later. But really not a ton of ranked matchups this week. But that's kind of by design. Rivalry week next week with Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn. So much good football next week. So it does check out. But like you said, I think we're all sitting like right near 500. So it is essentially a coin flip. But we're doing our best and have had some up and downs here.
All right, and let's Now let's see if we can. We have been stringing some winning weeks together, though, and let's see if we can keep that going. I think Michigan and Maryland is where we start. What is the spread on that?
Spread is 19. So Michigan on the road. Tony, I guess we'll start with you. Who do you got in this Big Ten East battle?
Yeah, I've been thinking. I think I have picked Michigan to cover, not just to win, but to cover every single week this year. That did not start out very well in the non-con. That was 0-3. It was better for a while. I think it is 5-5. I think Michigan is now 5-5 against the spread in 10 games. And so with that, which way? I'm a little hesitant to pick Michigan again just because of finding this run game formula. And Maryland is a more potent offense. They can put up points that other teams can't. But Michigan is just too good. Michigan is just that much better than Maryland on every side of the ball. So somehow, some way, Michigan will win by more than 19. So I'm taking the Wolverines to cover.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one because, Penn State absolutely demolished Maryland, and they have a really good defense, just like Michigan does. And but at the same token, I just think maybe with all the stuff that's been accumulating lately, I don't know if Michigan has another crisp performance. There was a lot of emotion in that Saturday game against Penn State, and the uncertainty again of whether Harbaugh is going to be there or not be there, factoring in and hanging over this entire week of practice. Whereas we didn't really know anything until Friday. It wasn't really didn't feel that palpable as it does now, where the Harbaugh suspension has already been experienced, and then you also don't know again whether he's going to be there for that opportunity to achieve the 1,000th win. So, and I think Maryland has again a capable offense and could give Michigan a little bit of fits, just because of Tagovailoa's mobility. Again, they have sometimes struggled against those types of quarterbacks. So I'm just going to take Maryland in this, and the fact that it's also at home also leads me to do that. But very hesitant pick there too.
Not dogging you at all about the pick, but before we get to Andrew, I would almost argue, Reiner, that your point sort of helped sort of the Michigan side of the argument. Just last week there was even more uncertainty, right? It was that last minute, and that's when you find out Jim Harbaugh can't go, right? You would think that would sort of throw them for a loop. This week, they're preparing for it all week. If he's there, great. If not, okay, that's all right too. And so I just think that was it's interesting how we both look at that differently, right? Like that was part of my rationale for things have sort of settled and normalized a little bit.
Well, but I think Harbaugh might be a little bit more distracted because there is this hearing. I don't know how much he's going to participate, if he's going to participate at all. So I don't know if he's doing any preparation work with that, but I don't think his mind is completely focused on the game. I don't think it can be unless he's got amazing ability to compartmentalize things and just to block out the one thing that actually might have more bearing on, his immediate future than necessarily the game. So I don't know how that's going to affect his, the preparation, how involved he is, and just his temperament even throughout the week. So it's something that that's the reason why I kind of, thought that it might have more of a factor than say it did the previous week when there was no clarity on when the Big Ten, if they were going to rule against him or suspend him or do anything with him, or it would come down to any ruling necessarily right before the game.
I'm gonna stay on the same line of thinking as you here, Reiner. 19 just kind of, it feels like this should be more like a 17-point spread to me. Maryland is not bad. They move the ball up and down the field, but they kind of beat themselves, which is obviously why that spread is so high. But I don't expect a total blowout here. And the other thing is, you can say it's not going to be a trap game. You can talk about it not being a trap game. But there's emotion and get up games, as they call them, for a reason. And there's an ebb and flows to a season, and showing that it's not a trap game and saying it's not a trap game are slightly different things. So Michigan, obviously, I think will win, but I'm going to take the 19 points in Maryland there. So briefly tease this game: Washington at Oregon State. Perhaps a little bit of surprise that Oregon State, despite Washington being right on the precipice of being in the college football playoff, there is an underdog at Oregon State. So 2.5-point favorites for Oregon State. Reiner, who are you taking?
I'm taking Washington. I mean, I've felt confident about Washington this whole year. And I think, again, Michael Penix is a gritty kind of quarterback, seems to always deliver in clutch situations. I know Washington has had its ups and downs offensively this year. Sometimes they've looked like lights out, sometimes not so great. But overall, I think he's comes to play in these big matchups, and I'm sure again they see that Oregon State is favored to win this game according to the Vegas odds maker. So I'm going to go with Washington here.
And there is a reason that Oregon State is favored to win this game, right? It is a tough strategy, and it is a tough ask to beat Washington. Few teams have done it in recent years, and nobody has done it this year, right? But one way to do it, to keep a potent offense off from scoring points, is to keep them off the field. And Oregon State and Damian Martinez, if you don't know the running back, he's a bulldozer, right? I mean, my man is 6 foot, 230 pounds, averages like 6.5 yards a carry. He's already rushed for 1,000 yards this year. And he's the real deal. And so people know Oregon State because former Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is there, but this is not, this is a rock fight, smash mouth team that I think brings the hammer to Washington on senior night in Corvallis. This is a tough 2-week stretch. Oregon State has Washington, and then somehow has to get up to play its final rivalry game against Oregon. Or I guess I don't know if they've been able to keep that rivalry alive. But the last meeting as Pac-12 teams. So it is a big stretch. However, Jonathan Smith, who is a popular coaching candidate name in Michigan State circles, he's Oregon State's coach, has the Beavers rolling. I like Oregon State to win and cover.
That's the old broadcaster in you there, Tony, taking a shot on DJ Ungalungale or what. I can never say his name, but you just mixed it right in there confidently. So I've got to shout you out there with the broadcast background there.
We try. I mean, I might have botched it, but if you say it confidently,
it didn't sound perfect. I'm not gonna lie, but I know I definitely botched it. You
just power through it. DJ Ungalale.
It's like Giannis and Tua.
That one I've got.
DJ.
That one I've got. Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yes,
I
can
get
it. But with all those letters, you just start powering through and just hope for the best. But
you're right.
But, I am also going with Washington here. I think this 2.5-point spread is a little disrespectful to Washington, to be honest. It feels like Washington should maybe be like a 1 or a 2-point favorite. Oregon State, don't get me wrong, they are, like Tony said, they're smash mouth football. They're a tough out this year. That's really what they are. They're tough to beat because of that run first style that they play with. They've got a competent quarterback. They've got a good running back. But Washington has played the devil a little bit here the last few weeks, but they've been finding ways to win. And I think that high-powered offense with huge stakes on the line here, you have to take care of business here to have a chance at the playoff here. So I am rolling with Washington and Michael Penix and those receivers. I mean, that's just They're next level, and you're going to see a lot of those receivers playing on Sundays in the future. Those are next level weapons out there. So I don't know if Oregon State can keep up with them.
Roma Dunze is I'm hoping the bullet off. Actually, I think it might be Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Keon Coleman. But I'd say though, he's in that top echelon. He is.
This is one of the best receiver classes in recent memory. Well, holy cow! Like Keon Coleman, most years would have a really strong argument. Marvin Harrison is just going to run away with it. Roma Dunze would normally have a really strong case. There are some serious receivers across the country this year.
He's 6'3", 215, 1,100 receiving yards, averaging 18.5 yards a catch.
How many touchdowns? I feel like every time I watch, he's nine.
Nine. Only 9.
Oh, wow. Marvin Harrison's had 10, I think, coming in this week, and then he obviously went off against Michigan State, 3 touchdowns. So probably locked up their award with that last week. But
that's a wrap.
All right, let's stay in the Pac-12. UCLA and USC for one final time in the Pac-12 here before they move to the Big Ten. Tony's nemesis, USC. We'll start with you here because you always have strong USC takes, Tony.
Yeah, and it has done wonders. Fading USC has just been the gift that keeps on giving. And so I think this might be the week where I'm riding it 1 week too far. There is a ton of smoke about what's going on in LA, and we're not talking about the Trojans, right? UCLA Bruins, Chip Kelly sounds like he's out after this game. So is he able to get him up one last time and fight and band together, or is Dante Moore's NIL deal up in flames and he's already looking where the next place to go? It stinks. They've only put up 17 points of offense in the last 2 weeks combined, losing a couple games in a row. However, what is the magic elixir for a struggling offense? Face USC's defense. It's like you're playing no one. So I don't know if UCLA wins, but they will put up at least 30. And that is saying something because their offense has been horrible. And I think it's enough to keep it close and keep it in a touchdown. So I don't like this one. This might be one of our hardest slates to pick thus far, at least for me. And this might have been the hardest one, but it's a principal game. UCLA.
Yeah, maybe, but again, USC actually, they hung around with Oregon and looked like, again, that was a lot more competitive, and the defense wasn't totally atrocious in that game. They only allowed 36, and with the UCLA hasn't been putting up points, so they don't look good. You got this stuff hanging around, the rumors, that are hovering above the program right now with Chip Kelly's status. I don't know. It just doesn't look good for UCLA in this game. And I think USC, they've already dealt with the Alex Grinch removal, and, they're a couple weeks removed from that. And so I think that they've somewhat maybe stabilized. How much motivation they have, I don't know. But again, it is USC, UCLA. It's a, crosstown rivalry, and, their biggest rivalry game, arguably. Maybe Notre Dame is, I don't know, but I would assume for USC that UCLA is probably that. So I would think that, there is some bragging rights and motivation on the line for them, and they, have to salvage something from this season. So why not beat UCLA, your crosstown rival? So yeah, I'm picking USC in this game. Yeah, as much as that pains me to say, because again, I've kind of come over to your side on the terrible nature of their defense and their fraudulent,
ways.
Persona, fraudulent persona.
Ways. They're fraudulent ways.
Yeah, exactly. But UCLA looks pretty weak this year. Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of I'm a little surprised actually by this Chip Kelly decision. Just going through their schedule. First of all, UCLA moving into a really tough conference here with the Big Ten. You can the Big Ten of this year your yesterday or whatever that saying is it's not there anymore. Don't laugh at me, Tony. The
yesteryear.
I couldn't think of the saying. But the Big Ten of your yesteryear is no longer there. I mean, this is gonna be a tough conference, and some of their losses this year have been close games, like Oregon State on the road. Okay, that seems like a tough game. At Utah, they beat Washington State, who's actually been kind of a tough out this year. On the road at Arizona, who's now ranked. Like, those are their losses this year. I just think that they may be overreacting to the season here. With that said, USC's offense has been really, no matter who they've been facing, they've been putting points on the board. 27 at Oregon, which was a really tough spot. 42 against Washington. 50 against Cal. 32 against Utah, who is always tough to score on. I think that it's just going to become too hard for UCLA to keep up in this game. So I am rolling with the Trojans, but like you said, Tony, it's kind of a weird game, and I don't feel that great about that pick either. So final game here, moving to the SEC, Georgia at Tennessee, 10-point favorites. Tony finishes off here.
Yeah, I feel really good about this pick, which is certainly something to worry about. But Georgia is a much better football team than Tennessee. I like them by much more than 10 points, so I will take Georgia to win by more than 10 points. That's kind of the extent of my analysis on that one.
Yeah, Tennessee's fallen back, under Josh Heupel this year. And to be honest with you, it was really expected. Joe Milton's the quarterback. I just have not had much faith in Joe Milton ever since 2020. He's just he bombed out at Michigan, and he's just not good enough. It doesn't compare to Hendon Hooker. And they also lost, some obviously high profile receivers with Hyatt, and Jalen Hyatt. And so it just hasn't been they're just not as strong a team across the board as they were last year. And Georgia, it started looking like they're getting their momentum going, especially offensively. Brock Bowers is back. They just absolutely shredded Ole Miss, and they look like a national championship contender again. It's really, they're gaining steam at the right time, and so I just think this is not a time for Tennessee to walk in, and Georgia looks like a buzzsaw right now.
Totally agree. The only thing that threw me off for this game was that spread of 10 points. I was like, really? I just don't know what Tennessee has shown that they are on the same level of as nearly a one score game, kind of flirting with the one score game. 10 points. Ole Miss just got blown off the field by Georgia, so I'm rolling with the Bulldogs here in this one as well. I do. Just let's not overthink it. Tennessee not as good as Georgia. Got to pick the Bulldogs. Plus Georgia still has a lot to play for here because they've been kind of slept on for the last few weeks by the College Football Committee. They finally got that number one spot. And I doubt they want to give it back with the poor performance against Tennessee. So, and one final note here: Michigan 5-4-1 against the spread this year. Tony, they had that push. Remember earlier this year?
Yep. That's right.
Got research on that one. So,
thank you. I'm glad we got Tony Reale on there on the back end. But okay, we're gonna wrap it there. Before we go for one last segment, Michigan hoops, pretty hot. We're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it sweet. We'll keep Andrew around. And we're going to talk about one of the surprising teams to start the 2023-24 college basketball season. Don't go anywhere. This is Hail Yes. All right, welcome back, and we're going to wrap this show up with the gridiron, on the gridiron, not the gridiron, on the hardwood. That's what I meant to say, because everything's been football. See, I can't even talk basketball because we have just been so football focused, but we've wanted to get to basketball as well. And Michigan, 3-0, their most impressive win just came on Monday against St. John's. Reiner, you look confused. Can I help you?
Well, I just have not. I personally been as focused on basketball, so I think I'm going to defer to you on this conversation mostly.
Okay.
It looks, from the looks of it, the offense seems to be more free flowing than it was last year, and you've got Doug McDaniel, who's stepped up. Looks like he's taking the lead here with obviously Hunter Dickinson being gone, Jed Howard being gone, Kobe Buffkin being gone. And maybe there's addition by subtraction with Hunter Dickinson because everything seemed to go through him last year. I mean, it was something like that. I mean, from my observation, I guess, and in something like when you move on from a player that does suck up all the attention and maybe the whole offense goes through, and it has to be more democratic, then that allows other players to step up and maybe feel like they're counted on and have more interest in contributing to the offense. So I don't know if that's your observation, but I think that there's some kind of tangible effect there.
There is no maybe about it. It is 100%. And it's not that Hunter Dickinson is not a tremendous college basketball player, because he is. It's that this team, like, I don't need to see any more. Like, I don't know what this season is going to hold, but the combination of these parts, and this has surprised me, looks so much better than last year, right? And arguably the if you looked at both rosters and you picked the three best basketball players on either team, they would all come from last year's team. It would be Hunter, Jet, and Kobe, just as straight hoopers. But as you said, I mean, the offense is flowing, the ball is moving. In all three games, someone has scored a career high. Doug McDaniel set a career high. Then Amari Burnett has a career high. Olivier Kamwa just missed a career high. He had 25. Will Cheddar had a career high with 20, right? I mean, it's different guys who are doing it. But one guy who has really impressed me is Terrence Williams. I was pretty tough on Terrence Williams last year, not in the way you are on professionals, because these are just college athletes. But at the same token, the team needed more from him and did not get it. I think if there was one, I mean, you could blame Hunter for sucking up all the oxygen. You could blame Jet for just being sort of for not playing on defense and not trying both of those things. But if Michigan had gotten mediocre, I mean, average production at the 4 position, they cakewalk to the NCAA tournament. And Terrence Williams has just taken it in stride, and he looks like a new player. He looks like the step they had hoped that he would take last year. I think he has more than 12 points in all 3 games. He didn't score. He scored more than 12 points one time after the Eastern game last year, which was game 2. He's shooting it well. He's still active on glass. And there's a million other people you could talk about. Doug McDaniel, all Big Ten, looked like caliber type of skill, right? He's got to extend it and show it. But they are really flashing. I'm seriously impressed early on. Andrew, what's impressed you the most?
Yeah, I think basketball is such a funny game, right? Because you watch Hunter Dickinson last night go for 27 and 21 against Kansas, or against Kentucky for Kansas, and it's just like, wow, it must be really missing him. But you also forget that he literally was completely, like, he breaks your defense as a unit. You know what I mean? Like, if you have Hunter Dickinson back there, he does one thing. He stands in the paint, he stands with his arms really tall, and he makes it sometimes tough if you're coming directly into him. Outside of that, he is not a great or useful defensive player. So he's pretty good rebounder too. Obviously, put up 21 rebounds last night.
Yeah, so, but he's not a good rim protector.
No, not at all. But he just stands. If you get him out of position, it's over, right? He's not good at rim protecting. He's not good at. He's just kind of takes up space down there. Well, now you've seen all the benefits of Doug McDaniel being able to have more space to cook. The offense seems more free flowing, and it's early. I think Michigan could maybe struggle a little bit in the half court, which is where Dickinson carried them last year when they facing tougher competition. But they look athletic. They seem faster, and they're scoring a ton of points. 93 points per game. I know you're not playing the greatest competition, but there's other teams who are not playing great competition who aren't scoring 93 a game. So the offense, which was maybe the question mark, has looked pretty strong.
The competition, though, it's hard to assess because, again, the first 2 teams won their conference championship. North Carolina,
Asheville.
North Carolina, yeah, UNC Asheville, yes, and then also Youngstown State, and then St. John's, obviously being coached by Rick Pitino, although they lost to Pace University in the exhibition season. So I don't know what to really make of St. John's, especially since they brought in a ton of transfers, and it usually takes a couple months to work that out. I mean, that's been the case with Eric Musselman in Arkansas, where it's usually takes 2 months before that team rounds into shape, and they look really good by January or February. So maybe that's the case with St. John's as well. I mean, the other thing that's interesting is, I mean, I guess maybe we kind of overlooked, going into the season, Michigan actually has a pretty good track record, at least under Howard and his assistants, of developing players. I mean, if you look at Kobe Buffkin, I mean, he made huge strides. Hunter Dickinson developed a 3-point game that wasn't there at the beginning. I mean, he had no 3-point shots his freshman year. And then now it seems like Terrence Williams has finally come around. So there is some development aspect that has been, pretty decent as far as he's concerned now. I mean, again, the recruiting hasn't always been the best, I think, there, and sometimes the roster construction, but they've actually developed the players, at Michigan, and like you've seen progress there.
Right. Well, roster construction seemed to be the concern this year, right? I mean, when I saw it, I'm like, so you got 5 power forwards, no true wings, and like 1 actual point guard who's not coming off of his second major surgery in 3 years, right? And so I'm just like, how does this work? But Nimari Burnett can handle the ball and can play the 1, the 2, and the 3. I mean, he hasn't played a lot of 1, but I mean, Nimari Burnett as a shooter off ball has really opened things up this year. And Doug McDaniel, he's just a flash. Like we saw it last year, but now it's like go ahead, right? Instead of him having to defer to Jet, he was the 4th option last year, right? Like if Jet's not doing it, if Kobe's not doing it, if Hunter's not doing it, then you can go. He was never able to do it. Now he is running the show, and this guy is as DMV as it comes. I mean, I really enjoy talking to Doug McDaniel. I mean, he's just cool. He's just a cool cat, and I mean, like he's just a dog. And you could feel it when you talk to him.
It's not all that surprising because last year he had to step in for Llewellyn. I mean, after he got hurt, and so he wasn't going to be the main guy. Now that those guys left and he's gained a ton of experience because Llewellyn was hurt and he was running the play. I mean, it ends up being beneficial for Michigan now that he's got that experience. Plus, he has this elevated role now because he has to in a lot of ways. So actually, it worked out for them. Again, they've developed these guys, though. I mean, there is some development going on within the program as far as some of the players that they've actually had progress. I mean, it's noticeable. I think.
I mean, I would push back a little bit on Hunter Dickinson. Yes, he developed a 3, but that's more, I think, his role changing. I mean, he did not attempt a 3 He did not attempt a 3 the first year. Yes, of course, he improved his shot, but he did not. I mean, he did not affect winning any more in his 3rd year than he did his first year. I mean, he was an All-American is to start, and then he was not after.
Yeah.
So I would argue that. And Terrence Williams, there was a year of regression. Now it seems he's done it again. But
Buffkin's a good example of a player that really.
Kobe Buffkin is the number one example.
And McDaniel too. I mean, there seems to be some.
I think they're doing a good
moment. Yeah, there. I mean, whether it's the backcourt. I mean, maybe not as much as the front court, but. Again, Dickinson developing some kind of outside game. What was either a credit to him or coaching staff.
I'm saying if you look at the Howard tenure, sorry, really quickly, Andrew, and then it's absolutely your turn. Caleb Houston, it's one and done guys too, right? Musa Diabate, Caleb Houston. I mean, it's not to Mo. I don't know, Mo Wagner, Franz Wagner. These guys just kind of.
He didn't have a chance.
Well, not Mo, but Franz, but just.
He didn't have a chance to develop those players, but when he's had the players multiple years, they seem to have added some aspect of their game or improved in some capacity. So, there is some credit there. I don't know if he's always gotten the right guys for what he wants to do. And, if this is more indicative of what Howard's teams are going to look like, it may be good because it seems like he comes from the NBA and, there is more free flowing offense. And so maybe this is what, and then Hunter Dickinson created maybe bogged it down a little bit just because, there was such an emphasis to throw it in the post, old Big Ten style, that maybe, there wasn't as much of an emphasis on this kind of, again, free flowing ball movement that you've described. And so I don't know. It's interesting though. Maybe this is what the true Michigan team is going to look like.
I think that the one thing about Doug McDaniels that I noticed was like right away he has that old school college leap look to him, if that makes sense, where it's like you don't see it as much now because of all the one and dones and the transfers and guys moving situations. There used to be one of the biggest factors was, okay, did player A get better from his freshman year to sophomore year? And you could almost, count on it. You don't see it as much now, but he looks like he really did take that next big jump. And then just to kind of like, you guys' debate as far as Dickinson, I think you kind of got both are right, where Dickinson did add the 3-point shot. But I think Tony's point is that he didn't necessarily improve at the stuff that he could have to improve winning basketball, like his boxing out or his rim protection, stuff that actually is probably going to help him in the league more than anything and help his teams win, because that's what in modern basketball you need your centers to do. They need to box out, they need to rebound, they need to protect the rim, and they need to be able to catch lobs. And Dickinson, those are probably his 4 biggest weaknesses, but he is so elite with touch and around the rim and scoring and offensive rebounding. So he does have skill sets that are undeniable,
And also Juwan Howard, if he's developing a big, Juwan Howard was not a 3-point shooter, right? Like the reason you go to play as a big for Juwan Howard, it would be developing his image, right? That's what these guys have said. So, of course you can teach someone to do something that was not your skill set, but I think I don't want to get like, I'm not trying to take the credit away, but like Howard Isley and what he's done with this offense deserves a ton of credit.
Howard and the staff, and it's clear that Phil Martell is an excellent coach and has an excellent track record. So, it's not like Howard's absence is going to kill the progress. And in some ways, maybe Martelli can bring something more than Juwan Howard has. He's got a lot more experience for sure, and has a much greater track record of success as a head coach.
So far, so good. Right. And I guess Michigan basketball will see if he can keep going. Friday against Long Beach State. And then that's their last game at home for a little while, for a couple weeks. They then head to the Bahamas for the Battle of Atlantis, which starts on Wednesday, November 22nd against Memphis. All right. That'll do it for this episode of Hail Yes. Thanks for listening. And thanks, as always, to Editor-in-Chief Nicole Avery-Nichols, Executive Editor Anjanette Delgado, Sports Editor Kirkland Crawford, Audio Engineer Robin Chan, and Sports Editor and Show Producer Andrew Burkle, and co-host Reiner Saban. Please rate, review, subscribe. As you do, as they say, it is very helpful. And stay tuned to freep.com for all the latest. There will be a very busy week of Michigan football watch. So that's where to get your coverage. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.